Joining me now in the studio, Liberal MP Alan Tudge and Labor MP Graham Perrett. Thanks very much for your time. Another busy day in Parliament. First to these pokey reforms. Alan Tudge, do you support these watered-down reforms now in the form that they're in?
Well, we'll take a close look at the legislation when we get a copy of it, but we've always been in favour of trialling things, and we've always been in favour of having a trial. We've been calling for that since 2010. What we have reservations, though, is about this particular trial. We have reservations about, can you have an effective trial in the ACT when New South Wales is only 10 minutes drive away? We've got reservations about the timing of the trial when the industry has said that it can't possibly start next year, which is the deadline. And we also have reservations about whether you can prevent public funds going from the taxpayer through to the Labor clubs in the ACT and then ending up in the coffers of the Labor Party. So we want to see those three things at the very least addressed.
So you vote against it?
Well, we'll take a look at the legislation. As I said, in principle we support the trial, but we've got some reservations about it.
Now, we're yet to hear from the Greens and Nick Xenophon as to the upper house, but we heard there perhaps some doubt that these reforms will get through the upper house. So is this a win at all?
Well, look, it's a positive step, I think, that the clubs in ACT, and my understanding is the New South Wales clubs in Queanbeyan, the New South Wales government's going to share some information as well. That's my understanding. So it will actually be whilst an ACT trial, there'll still be the cooperative involvement of the clubs across the border in New South Wales. So I'm all for measuring appropriately, empirically, finding out how people behave, how it impacts on communities, how clubs behave. So with Alan, I do agree that it's a positive first step. I don't like to agree with Clubs Australia, but I've got to agree with Anthony Ball that this is a positive step, a good thing to occur in our communities. Queensland's a little bit different compared to ACT and New South Wales, so we have a slightly different approach. We don't have the same $10 bets as New South Wales. I think we're not dissimilar to Victoria.
Yeah, Victoria's $5.
Yeah, so it's slightly different impacts, but I'm looking forward to the trial taking place, and happy to remind everyone in Australia this is the first time ever that a federal government has taken a step in this area, a positive step, a small step but a positive step, and I look forward to the results.
Well, we should get a clear indication of what the Senate will do on this, which way they will vote in a few minutes' time. You can see on the bottom right of your screen there we are standing by to hear from Senator Nick Xenophon and Senator Richard Di Natale from the Greens. Richard Di Natale, that is. We'll bring that to you live. But we also heard Andrew Wilkie today, Graham Perrett, say that this doesn't mean that he's going to enter any written agreement with the government. So the government position in Parliament remains as precarious as ever.
It's still a very delicately balanced Parliament. We understand that. I mean, that's why to get these 300 pieces of legislation that we've got through in the 43rd Parliament is so remarkable in a way, because it is so finely balanced, and it comes down to one vote or tied votes, as it does every time. It certainly keeps every backbencher, every member of the Parliament on their toes. But that ain't a bad thing for politicians to be working harder to get legislation through the Parliament. And we'll see how Mr Wilkie votes down the track, and the other independents, how they vote down the track. But I'm very optimistic. Common sense usually prevails, I find, in this Parliament. Even if the starting position is no, common sense usually prevails.
As you know, 87% of the bills were supported or not blocked by the opposition, so let's not go down this path.
Okay, Alan Tudge, Andrew Wilkie, though reluctantly agreeing to these reforms, does that bring him closer into the tent of Labor?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he said pretty clearly today that this does not mean that he's part of the Labor government while he was beforehand. And the reason being is because the Prime Minister basically tore up the written agreement that he had with her. And just like she misled the Australian public with saying there'd be no carbon tax under a government that she would lead, she also misled Andrew Wilkie. So I don't think that he'll be supporting the government on a day-to-day basis. He'll be continuing to do what he has been doing over the last couple of months.
And let's be fair dinkum here, Alan. He's not running into the arms of Tony Abbott. The reason that we had to change the agreement was because Tony Abbott said he would not support the Pokies legislation.
You knew during the discussion.
Played into the Anthony Ball Clubs Australia agenda, and that's why
there was a breach of trust with him.
All right. Well, look, let's take a very quick break. We will keep our eye Oh, no, let's not take a break. Let's go to the Senate courtyard, because it looks like Nick Xenophon is just walking up to the microphone here. This will, of course, give us a very clear indication of what will happen with this watered-down legislation on pokey machine reforms. Let's go to the Senate courtyard now. Welcome back. Graham Perrett and Alan Tudge are still with me here in the studio on Lunchtime Agenda. We're going to turn our attention now to Craig Thompson's statement in Parliament yesterday. We've had just over 24 hours to digest it. Now, no one's really saying, Alan Tudge, that he's been exonerated, but the waters have been muddied somewhat by the new allegations and denials that Craig Thompson has made in Parliament. Why not now let this play out in the courts?
Well, because, David, you're confusing two things here. You've got criminal proceedings which should be properly adjudicated in the courts. But then in relation to misleading the Parliament, that is the proper role for the Parliament to adjudicate upon. No other body can adjudicate on that. And misleading the Parliament is one of the most serious breaches that you can have under our parliamentary system. And if we don't take these matters seriously, then it damages the overall integrity of the Parliament.
Couldn't that damage the court cases, potentially, there aren't any at the moment, against Craig Thompson in the future?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Graham Perrett, how much has this whole saga tainted the Labor government?
Look, David, I joined Parliament and ran for Parliament because I wanted to do noble deeds gracefully and help as many people as possible. So any day that I spend talking about brothels and credit cards and misusing union members' money is a day wasted as far as I'm concerned. And so the damage to both the Labor Party and to the Parliament, I would suggest, has put mud on every politician's hands. And that's not a good thing, because Alan and I would disagree on many things, but I bet we would agree on the fact that we're here because we want to make Australia a better place. And so this whole soap opera has not been a great experience for the Parliament.
Just on that, the government has said that really the focus should be on things like the budget, other matters that concern people in the community. But at the same time, in what appears to be a tit-for-tat kind of battle now in the Privileges Committee, Liberal Craig Kelly has been referred there. Craig Thompson was first, and now Liberal Craig Kelly for failing to declare company directorships. And Anthony Albanese has told the Party Room today that a number of other cases might be referred to Privileges. Why?
Well, look, you'd have to talk to Minister Albanese about that. The reality is people do forget to update the register. I mean, Alan just said it's the most serious thing can happen in Parliament. The reality is the Leader of the Opposition did it innocently.
Misleading the Parliament is. It's a grave breach of
practice. So people make a mistake, and then the normal procedure would be to correct it and move on. I mean, the reality is the people of Dobell elected Craig Thompson. He gets a performance review every 3 years where they can express their views about whether he should be their representative. So I'm wary of this meshing together of judiciary powers and parliamentary powers. I'm very wary of it.
Just in 20 seconds or so before we go to question time, which you've got to go to as well, a final comment, Alan Tudge?
This goes to the absolute integrity of the Parliament in relation to this matter. And frankly, the Prime Minister has to take Craig Thompson out of protective custody and take proper action so that we can try to restore some dignity back to this Parliament.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Graham Perrett, Alan Tudge. Appreciate your company here on Lunchtime Agenda, and appreciate your company too at home. We're going to take you now to the floor of the House of Representatives for question time, where, of course, we do expect Craig Thompson once again to feature heavily, and the government's watered-down pokey reforms. Andrew Wilkie has agreed to back them, but the Senate is another question entirely. Thanks for watching.